So this morning I was driving into the office and like I usually do, I was listening to a podcast, and this particular podcast was an individual interviewing several guys that were worth hundreds of millions of dollars that were doing really big and interesting things, and he was asking them about their businesses. And I had the thought that these are guys that are extremely successful now, and they have been successful for quite some time. But the reality is, if you go all the way back into their career to when they were in their early 20s, they had started another business. And along the way, they've had multiple businesses to finally arrive at the business that's making them extremely wealthy. And the question that I get all the time is, how do I raise money to start my business? And I feel like most people that ask that question, and this is a broad generalization, they sit on the sidelines waiting for the money to show up when in fact they should just take some form of action. The reality about raising money to start a lawn care business or an irrigation business or a tree business is that it's going to be really difficult to get that money unless you have equity in your home and you can refinance it, or you have some other assets such as a paid off car that you can finance and get cash, or you have credit cards. You're really left with asking a relative or a friend or a family member for money, or maybe there's somebody you know that will invest in your business sort of as an angel. That would be a word that they'd use for it. But outside of that, you're generally not going to get a bank loan, and the reason for it is because these industries are higher risk industries. They're lower barrier of entry businesses. That means a lot of people get into these businesses, they don't make it, and they fail. There's a lot of turnover with the smaller business. Now, don't let that scare you. Don't let that don't think in any way that that means that that's going to be the situation for you, because you'll learn and you'll do things other people aren't willing to do, and therefore you'll be successful. But the reality of it is much like starting a restaurant, these businesses have high risk to the bank. So the banks don't tend to like to loan money. So you're really going to have to get your money in one of the ways I described: friends, family, credit cards, taking out a mortgage on your home, things of that sort. Or if you can find somebody that's successful to loan you the money, they're going to want a pretty big piece of your business for taking the risk along with you, because it's a lot of risk. And so you're giving away quite a bit of your business basically to just get a faster start. So the reason I told you about the podcast is I'd love to have you think about this a different way. Think about your business career as a journey. It's so easy to read news articles and listen to podcasts and hear the story of the guy that's in his 20s. It's generally a tech story these days. It's a guy that's in his 20s that just sold for 30 million or 40 million or 100 million or whatever that number is. But the reality is there was 1,000 other guys like him trying to do it that you never heard about. And there was a whole bunch of those guys that didn't raise money to do it. They did it themselves. They cash flowed it themselves. They grew slower in the beginning, but later things started to take off. Well, my point here is that you only hear about the big stories, the very few. But what it does to all of us is it makes all of us think that, man, I need to make it on my first thing. Like, I need to have this first thing go big and go big fast, and I need to cash out and be done. The reality is, and the way I'd encourage you to think about this is, your business career is a journey. If you're trying to find money for your first business now, this is your first business. If you learn the skills to build a company, and you learn how to build a team, and you learn how to market, you learn how to build a leadership team to help you run the company, you learn how to recruit, you learn how to sell, you learn how to cash flow the company, you learn all the legal side of it, you learn all this stuff that, again, might intimidate you because it's a lot of stuff to learn, but you don't have to learn it all at once. It just slowly happens over time, and then one day you wake up and you're like, man, I can't believe I learned all that. If you go through that process, then you'll know how to do your second business and your third business. There's a next thing in life. Like, we're going to be around for a while. So this is just your first thing. Who cares if it takes a couple extra years in the broad scheme of a 40-year career, or maybe longer, because when you own the thing and other people run it for you, why would you retire? So back to my point, who cares if it takes you a couple years longer to build your very first thing, because along the way you learn a lot of lessons. So if you could have 50 grand today to start it, and you could shave a 12 months of time off of growing the business by giving up some ownership and getting 50 grand or 100 grand versus not getting that money and taking a little bit longer to get there, does it really matter over the course of a 40-year period or a 30-year career, over the course of owning multiple companies? Maybe this is just your first thing. So I'm saying it's going to be very difficult to go get a bank loan. You could find an investor, it's going to be somewhat challenging. And if you're going to get an investor, I wouldn't just get one for money. I would get an investor that has the experience that can show you how to do it. Otherwise, you're giving up a lot of equity and getting no advice. You're just getting money. And what happens when you raise money is you basically take money and you apply it to bad thinking, because in the beginning you don't know what to do, you don't know the ideal business model, you don't know who the ideal client is, you don't know the marketing that works best, you don't know all these things. And so what you do is you pour money into bad decisions. Whereas if you have to first figure it out, you're forced to be aggressive, you're forced to scrap, you're forced to work really hard, you're forced to figure stuff out and find creative solutions because there isn't any money. So you get to a place faster where you figured out what to do and what the right things to do are. My argument is that if you do raise money, it should probably be 4 or 5 years out when you've figured everything out, because now you can pour good money on top of good strategy instead of good money on top of bad thinking and bad strategy. And that's what happens generally when you raise money early in the businesses. And again, I say all of that because I want to give you some encouragement that there's an alternative way of thinking, that raising money probably isn't even the best strategy anyway. So if you can't get it, don't be completely beat down and say, well, I can't do it, I'll have to wait till someday I have money or someday I can raise money. No, just go out and start doing this thing on the side now. Just get your first mower, get your first truck, stock it with your initial irrigation parts, get your first whatever that service, your pool equipment or whatever it is, and just start doing some stuff on the side. Go make that first 1,000, then get that next 5,000 in recurring business. Yep, you didn't have money, so it took a little longer to get there, but you got there. That's the path to follow. And so don't be beat down if you can't raise money, because it is very difficult to do in these types of businesses. Start doing something. And then think about what I was talking about. You're playing the long game. This is not a figure it all out, cash out in 5 year kind of thing. This is build the experience so I can build the next thing that's even bigger, and then the next thing that's even bigger. And that's how you create wealth, and that's how you create confidence, because you have the knowledge to go do whatever it is you want to do later in life, and whatever business it is you want to build later in life. So don't give up if you can't raise the money. Just find an alternative way to get there.